When you think of the Holocaust, what comes to mind? Where was it? Who was involved? For many people, their first response is to think of Jewish communities as the victims to Nazi Germany. What they don't realize is that the Holocaust affected more than just the Jewish community. It affected groups like the Roma people, Jehovah's Witness, homosexuals, Catholic Poles, and more. The Holocaust spread outside of Germany to places like Poland, Hungary, and parts of the Soviet Union. The complexity of the Holocaust overshadows all of these places and allows us to forget how many were involved. When the Nazi Party invaded Poland in 1939, many Poles were affected. While the Nazis eyed Polish Jews as their first target, many of the remaining citizens were helpless against the Nazi force. Non-Jewish Poles were largely Roman Catholic at the time, and suddenly they found themselves as victims, bystanders, or saviors to the Holocaust. Adolf Hitler's decision to invade Poland insisted upon Germany's need for space and expansion. By doing so, Germany gained control over Poland, splitting it into two areas, Volksdeutsch and the general government. Volksdeutsch was made up of western and northern Poland, while the general government was controlled in the central and southern areas. When splitting up the newly acquired territory, Germany created a plan to prevent the Polish citizens from revolting against them. Heinrich Himmler, famous for leading the SS and one of Adolf Hitler's closest members of the Nazi Party, devised a plan called the Treatment of Racial Aliens in the East. The policy had two goals. The first goal was to prevent Polish elites, such as leaders, political figures, or intellectualists, from forming a resistance that would revolt against German power. The second part of the policy was aimed at exploiting Poland's working class of peasants and unskilled laborers. The Nazis acted on this quickly by arresting or killing civilians who resisted the Nazis or were capable of doing so based on their wealth and social status. Through this horrific violence, tens of thousands of Polish Catholic clergymen, landowners, teachers, doctors, and more were killed in mass murders or sent off to labor camps. Scenes such as this were seen in both the general government and Volksdeutsch areas of Poland. The harsh treatment of the Roman Catholic Church increased in the annexed areas of Poland. Nazis and their supporters killed, deported, or sent priests and clergymen to concentration camps. Over the course of the Holocaust, German officers executed 3,000 religious figures in Poland. 1,992 of them died in concentration camps, and the other 787 died at Dachau. In their attempts to Germanize the areas under Nazi power, Germany began a process of assimilation. Cultural assimilation is converting the beliefs, behaviors, and values of one group to resemble another group's. They shut down schools, changed infrastructure to resemble German ideals, and suppressed religion throughout Poland. In addition to attacking members of the church, the Nazi Party seized and relocated thousands of Polish Catholic civilians. They uprooted and relocated over 110,000 Poles in the years of 1942 and 1943 alone. Many elderly citizens and children died en route to the general government locations. Others were stripped from their families and sent to work in labor camps. Many ended up as inmates to Auschwitz. Between 1939 and 1945, 1.5 million Polish citizens were transferred to the Reich for labor. They were forced to wear a discriminatory P sewn into their clothes with purple thread to distinguish them from the Jews. With Auschwitz as one of the main concentration and death camps, it also saw the most amount of deaths of Polish civilians. Between the years of 1940 to 1945, over 75,000 Poles died in Auschwitz through poor living conditions or execution. While many Polish civilians were captured and tortured along with the Jews, there were others who did not receive this treatment. They were bystanders to the torturous acts in their nation. Those who weren't deemed victims of the terrible actions of the Nazis stood by as the brutalities occurred throughout the nation. Bystanders from the Polish community held deep-rooted anti-Semitic beliefs and took no action to stop the violence. Others of the Polish community who aided the Jews and victims were isolated and seen as traitors to their own kind. The name Szmacowniks translates to blackmailers, which made up an entire organization of Polish citizens. They betrayed their neighbors, friends, and family on a daily basis for aiding a Jew or having knowledge of where they were hiding. Many of the members of the Polish community who contributed to this group were considered of lower social class and had criminal behavior. This organization allowed for them to outwardly express their anti-Semitic views without social restrictions or judgment. Countless members of Jews and non-Jewish citizens were reported to the German police by the Polish people. In addition to reporting the Jews, many members robbed them of their belongings, clothes, and more. Many Polish peasants aided the Nazis by guiding them to the location of several Jewish hideouts. They then freely raided and murdered the Jews there, in hopes to receive their belongings or rewards of food from the Germans. Another famous display of ignorance to the Holocaust is given directly from the Catholic Church. Pope Pius XII refused to denounce the Nazi Party and its actions in Poland in 1940. His decision to remain silent marked a shift in policy for the Catholic religion and those who followed it. From then on, his silence regarding the genocide of Polish Catholics and Jews negatively affected church members' support of the Vatican. Despite a strong divide between the Polish community regarding victimization and attitudes of the Holocaust, there were thousands of Polish civilians who sacrificed their own lives in order to save the Jewish people. With their bravery and use of small acts of resistance against the Germans, many Polish Catholic citizens are considered saviors or heroes of the Jewish people and others who endured a tragic fate. The act of aiding a Jew or concealing them from the German army was vastly unpopular among the Polish community. Many feared their families or town would receive punishment for aiding a Jew and refrained from helping. Those who helped Jews escape said they were motivated by Jewish neediness and Christian beliefs. They used it as a way to protest the Nazis. The formation of the Segregated served as a main underground operation through which many Polish Gentiles aided the Jewish population. Referred to often as righteous Gentiles, heroes, or the glory of mankind, many Poles in this organization were canonized by others for their risks they took to save the victims. The members of the Segregated found shelters and homes for escaped Jews to hide in, purchased food and clothing, and created false identities for Jews to live under. Many built secret locations and bunkers within their homes for the Jewish people to hide in during searches performed by the Nazis. Catholic churches also extended their help to the Segregated and offered shelter and refuge for Jews as well, even if it resorted to being captured or killed by Nazi forces. Over 3,000 Poles lost their lives while aiding the Jews. Those who survived are remembered for their kindness and generosity, including a woman by the name of Irena Sendler. Irena Sendler was a Polish social worker who helped thousands of children in escaping from the Warsaw ghettos. Dressed as a nurse, Irena entered the ghettos and secretly distributed resources to the Jewish community. After the Nazis began to deport the Jewish families to the death camps, Irena knew the children needed to escape in order to survive the camp life. Working closely with the Segregated organization, Irena headed the children's department, codenamed Jolanta. 2,500 children were saved and given Christian identities to survive the Holocaust. Irena's story is similar to hundreds of other workers during the Holocaust, each with their own struggles and risks. Without the bravery of all these men and women, the staggering casualties of the Holocaust would have increased severely. The Holocaust's complexity extends through the multiple roles it contains and the people it affected. Many resort to only recognizing the Jewish community's loss and hardships, and fail to see the forgotten trauma that affected other groups as well. The difficult struggle Poland and its citizens endured segregated their attitudes and community into three separate groups. The victims, bystanders, and saviors of the Holocaust each have their own story, and while they're connected, they are in many ways vastly different. Through each group's story is the unspoken complexity of the Holocaust and its everlasting mark on human history.